Muting everybody, and we'll start with the invocation. Invocation to the Supreme God, to the Great Divine Father and the Great Divine Mother. Thank you for your priceless blessings, for your divine light, divine love, divine power, divine healing, guidance, mercy, help, and protection. We thank you. To our great spiritual teacher, to all the great spiritual teachers, to all the great gods and goddesses, to all the great ones. We very, very humbly thank you for your great blessings. Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, let's go ahead. We were in a section which had to do with in the ashram of Mahatma Gandhi. Remember, Yogananda also met Mahatma Gandhi. This great teacher also met Mahatma Gandhi. So it looks like Mahatma Gandhi was a known great saint, actually, which is, I think, a very inspiring thing to to know about that. In the late 1930s and early 40s, I had the opportunity to stay with Mahatma Gandhi in Vardha Ashram, where I met many gentle and loving souls. While I was there, I observed Mahatma Gandhi serving a leper. The leper was a learned Sanskrit scholar who was frustrated and angry, but Mahatma Gandhi personally looked after him with great care and love. That was an example to all of us. The way in which he served the sick and left a lasting impression on me. My master told me to observe Mahatma Gandhi, particularly when he walked. And when I did so, I found that his walk was quite different from the walk of other sages. He walked as though he were separate from his body. He seemed to be pulling his body as a horse pulls the cart. He was a man who constantly prayed for others and also and who had no hatred for any religion, caste, creed, sex, or color. He had three teachers, Christ, Krishna, and Buddha. All three religions, by the way, yeah? Christ, Krishna, and Buddha. Mahatma Gandhi. A pioneer in the realm of ahimsa consciousness, non-violence, Gandhi always experimented in extending man's capacity to love. Such a man finds joy in all the storms and trials of life. Gandhi never protected himself, but rather always protected his one principle of ahimsa, or love. The flame of love burned in him day and night like a fire which nothing could quench. Complete self reliance and fearlessness were the foundation stones of Gandhi's philosophy. Violence touched the very depths of his being, but valiant in the spirit of ahimsa, he walked on alone. There was not a word of protest, there was not a flicker of hostility in his life. Wow, this is amazing, yeah? Not a word of protest, and there was not a flicker of hostility in his life. That's amazing. That's amazing. मतलब इनके लाइफ में इतना वायलेंस रहा है कि लाइफ का हर कोना जो है मतलब वायलेंस टच कर चुका होगा बट अपनी अहिंसा की स्पिरिट में वो इतने स्ट्रांग थे कि उन्होंने कभी कोई प्रोटेस्ट नहीं किया कभी उन्होंने किसी फॉर्म में हॉस्टिलिटी नहीं दिखाई While staying with Gandhi, I noted these principles in my diary. First, non-violence and cowardice cannot go together because non-violence is a perfect expression of love that casts out fear. To be brave because one is armed implies an element of fear. The power of ahimsa is an extremely vital and attractive force which does not come from physical strength. See, the power of ahimsa does not come from physical strength. It's a force, right, which doesn't come from physical strength. A true follower of ahimsa does not believe in disappointment. He dwells above in perennial happiness and peace. That peace and joy do not come to him who is proud of his intellect or learning. They come to him who is full of faith and has an undivided and single pointed mind. Wow, wow, wow. Let's read the first and second again. Non-violence and cowardice cannot go together. मतलब आप डरपोक और नॉन वायलेंट दोनों नहीं हो सकते एक साथ। नॉन वायलेंस का मतलब आपके पास फिजिकल स्ट्रेंथ है वो भी नहीं होता है, आपके पास सिक्योरिटी है कहीं से वो भी नहीं होता, डरपोकपना भी नहीं होता। तो ये बोल रहे हैं कि बिकॉज नॉन वायलेंस इज अ परफेक्ट एक्सप्रेशन ऑफ लव दैट कास्ट्स आउट फियर। To be brave because one is armed implies an element of fear. The power of ahimsa is an extremely vital and attractive force which does not come from physical strength. Mm. Second, a true follower of ahimsa does not believe in disappointment. He dwells above in perennial happiness and peace. That peace and joy do not come to him who is proud of his intellect or learning. They come to him who is full of faith and has an undivided and single point in mind. That this is good, no? जो जिस पीस की बात कर रहे हैं, जो कि एक अहिंसा के सच्चे फॉलोअर का की निशानी होती है, वो इंटेलेक्ट या लर्निंग की वजह से नहीं आती, मतलब आपके पास कितना ज्ञान है उससे नहीं आती ये वाली पीस। ये आती है जि, आदि जिसमें श्रद्धा हो अहिंसा के प्रिंसिपल के प्रति, और जो है उसका माइंड कॉन्सेंट्रेटेड हो। तीसरा पॉइंट, द इंटेलेक्ट कैन प्रोड्यूस मेनी वंडर्स बट नॉन वायलेंस इज अ मैटर ऑफ द हार्ट. It does not come through intellectual exercises. Wow, 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 wow. Intellect can produce many wonders, but non-violence is a matter of the heart. It does not come through intellectual exercises. Spectacular. Number 4, hatred is not overcome by hatred, but rather by love. This is an unalterable law. Hatred is not overcome by hatred, but by love. इसलिए मॉर्निंग में हम जब भी फॉरगिवनेस की प्रैक्टिस करते हैं तो हम जिन लोगों ने भी हमसे हेट्रेड एक्सप्रेस किया है हम उनकी तरफ लव करते हैं, पर लव प्रेयर कर सकते हैं ना, तो वो हम लॉ का यूज करते हैं पहले के हेट्रेड के सीड्स को निकालने के लिए वगैरह वगैरह, राइट। नेक्स्ट, डिवोशन इज नॉट मियर वर्शिप विद लिप्स, इट इज सेल्फ सरेंडर विद माइंड, एक्शन एंड स्पीच। अच्छी और बुरी दोनों के दोनों सिचुएशन में गॉड का थैंक यू करना आना चाहिए, और that should be probably a very good way to live life in action also. खाली भगवान का वो गायत्री मंत्र पढ़ लिया, ये कर लिया, थोड़ा सा संध्या वंदनम कर लिया क्योंकि गुरुजी ने बोला है, रिलीजन में लिखा है, तो उससे वो एक्चुअल डिवोशन नहीं होता जब तक कि प्रॉपरली सेल्फ सरेंडर ना हो अंदर से ना। नेक्स्ट, गांधी डिड नॉट बिलीव इन द बैरियर्स created by religions, cultures, superstitions, and mistrust. He taught and lived the brotherhood of all religions. और पता है ये वही कर सकता है जो कि हर रिलीजन में एकता, वो यही कर सकता है जिसने उस एकता को अंदर से जाना हो, जिसने कि अपने अंदर वो एकता पूरी तरह से महसूस की हो, और तब जो है उसके एक्सप्रेशन में वो एकता निकल निकल के आएगी। गांधी believed in the art of living without concern for the fruits of one's actions. He practiced not worrying about success or failure, but paid attention to the work at hand without feeling the slightest anxiety or fatigue. In order to enjoy life, one should not be selfishly attached to anything. Non-attachment means to have a pure motive and a correct means without any worry or desired result. ये वही बता रहे हैं जो कि गीता में लिखा हुआ है कि कर्म करो पर फल की चिंता मत करो, without any worry for the desired result. He who gives up action falls, but he who gives up the reward rises and is liberated. मतलब आप काम करते जाओ करते जाओ करते जाओ, जो काम सही है उसको करने में रुकना नहीं, ये मतलब है इसका, उसका रिजल्ट आता ही आता है, वो लॉ है बेसिकली. Yoga is the complete reintegration of all the states of mind, the intellect, senses, emotions, instincts, and every level of personality. It is the process of becoming whole. Yoga is the complete reintegration of all the states of mind, intellect, senses, emotions, instinct, and every level of personality. इसको ना थियोसॉफी में बोला जाता है इंटीग्रेटेड पर्सनालिटी, और इंटीग्रेटेड पर्सनालिटी को सोल से मर्ज किया जाता है उसके यूज के लिए. तो पहले जो है आप जो भी प्रॉपर स्कूल फॉलो करेंगे स्पिरिचुअल ग्रोथ का, उसमें एक पहले प्रॉपर इंटीग्रेट पर्सनालिटी फॉर्म होगी, जिसका कि बाद में आगे जाके सोल जो है उसका यूटिलाइजेशन करके अपने अपने काम कर सकता है इफेक्टिवली. और जब तक ये प्रॉपरली इंटीग्रेट पर्सनालिटी जब जब तक नहीं बनती है, तब तक वो आगे किसी बहुत बड़े काम की नहीं होती है. मतलब ठीक है, आपने थोड़ा आपको ब्लिस फील हो गया, पर आप दुनिया के लिए किसी काम के नहीं हो, right? So I think it is crucial to understand that spiritual path is something which is tread with great caution. तो उसमें ऐसा नहीं कि मतलब कुंडली जगाना ही खाली गोल है, वो तो one of the goals है वो. More important of the goals also is to make you a completely integrated personality. उसका यूटिलाइजेशन सोल कर सकती है, उसका यूटिलाइजेशन सोल ना भी करें तो हायर बींग्स कर सकते हैं, बहुत सारे लोग इसका इस्तेमाल कर सकते हैं. और इसको बनाने में समय लगता है, क्योंकि इसमें हर फैकल्टी हर चक्र को प्रॉपरली मर्ज किया जाता है एक दूसरे के साथ एक सीक्वेंस में. मतलब वो जरूरी है जानना. So इसमें है इंटीग्रेशन एट एवरी लेवल ऑफ पर्सनालिटी. Number 10, once mantra becomes one staff of life and carries one through every ordeal. Each repetition has a new meaning and carries one nearer and nearer to God. It is capable of transforming that which is negative in the personality into that which is positive, and it can gradually integrate divided and opposing thoughts at a deeper and deeper levels of consciousness. ये एक चीज है जो कि हम शायद प्रॉपरली समझते नहीं है. इसका मतलब एक लेवल पे इसका मतलब ये होता है, आप लोगों में से काफी लोगों ने वैसे रियलाइज तो कर लिया होगा कि हमें कभी कभी कोई चीज अच्छी नहीं लगती है किसी के बारे में, अपने बारे में, ठीक है, और हम उसका कड़ा विरोध भी करना चाहते हैं, बट हम अपने आप को रोक लेते हैं. और फिर बाद में जो है हम अंदर से वी आर नॉट हैप्पी अबाउट इट. उससे ये होता है कि आपका आपका मन कुछ चाह रहा था, आपने सोचा कुछ, आपने किया कुछ और, क्योंकि ये तीनों अलग अलग हो गए तो उसमें स्प्लिट फॉर्म होने शुरू हो जाते हैं. टॉरकॉम सरादरयान इसको बोलता है क्लीवेजेस इन द पर्सनालिटी. आपके थॉट स्पीच और एक्शन में इंटीग्रेशन नहीं हुआ है अभी तक. आप जो मन में सोचते हैं, आप जो बोलते हैं, और आपके एक्शंस जो हैं उसमें अलग अलग चीजें दिखती हैं, डिफरेंट डिफरेंट थिंग्स. तो उसमें क्लीवेजेस हैं, उसमें बाइफर्केशंस हैं अभी. तो ये इंटीग्रेशन नहीं होता है. आप जैसा सोचें उसी लाइन में बोले, उसी लाइन में करें तो इंटीग्रेशन दिखता है. और इस तरह के आदमी आमतौर पर रिलायबल होते हैं इन वर्ल्ड. इस तरह के आदमियों पर रिलाय किया जा सकता है कि हाँ, ये जो सोचेंगे वही बोलेंगे वही करेंगे, समथिंग लाइक दैट, राइट. एंड वेरी गुड टू बी अराउंड पीपल लाइक दिस. After meeting many wonderful and striking personalities like Mahadev Desai, Miraben, and Prabhavati Behan, I became friendly with Ramdas, son of Mahatma Gandhi, and took him to Kausani, one of the fascinating and beautiful places of the Himalayas. Not sacrifice but conquest, Tagore. When I was a teenager, I often traveled with my brother disciple Dandi Swami Shivananda of Gangotri, who was about 20 years older than I am. Once we went on a journey to Mussoorie, a holiday resort at the foot of the Himalayas. On the way, we stopped at a small town called Rajpur. During those days, Tagore, a famous poet of the East, was staying in a cottage there. आपको पता है कि योगानंदा भी टैगोर से मिलने गए थे, राइट? और वो उनके कॉलेज में उनसे मिलने गए थे. सो इस बार वहां पे टैगोर रह रहे थे कॉटेज में. My brother disciple was from Bengal and knew Tagore and his family well. So we went to visit him. We were invited to live in the same cottage with him for 2 months. Tagore became fond of me and asked my brother disciple to send me to Shantiniketan, the educational institution he had founded. I strongly felt a desire to visit Shantiniketan and went there in 1940. Rabindranath Tagore, the son of... Really? Sorry, what? Rabindranath Tagore, the son of Rabindranath Tagore, received me. Acha, haan, okay. So Rabindranath Tagore and his son received me and arranged for me to stay in one of the cottages next to Sri Malikji, who was a devout and committed admirer of Tagore and his institute. Shantiniketan was then one of the most beautiful and fascinating ashrams of the world. Several hundred students lived and studied there. So Swami Rama at Tagore's ashram in Shantiniketan. Tagore was known as Gurudev by the students of Shantiniketan and Thakur by the general public. He was a very gifted poet from Bengal and one of the greatest poets of all time. In the realms of religion, philosophy, literature, music, painting, and education, his many-sided, handsome, and towering personality was well known to the world. During the period, by the way, Tagore has also won a Nobel Prize. I'm hoping all of you know that, right? During the period I lived with Tagore, I was able to observe his devotion to his work. He was always engaged in his daily practice or was busy writing or painting. He spent very few hours in sleep and would not recline in the daytime. The infirmities of age did not change his habits. I looked upon him as an earnest sadhak, spiritual seeker. It is true that one object of all sadhak of the world is to be somewhat godlike. It was not necessary for a godlike man like Tagore to imitate other godmen of India in order to express himself. His life was not like that of an ascetics, which is then barren as desert. Asceticism का मतलब होता है त्याग, या जो लोग त्याग देते हैं वो. तो वो ये बता रहे हैं कि एसेटिस जो जो लोग त्यागते हैं चीजें, उनकी लाइफ बहुत बैरन टाइप की जाती है. मतलब डेसर्ट टाइप की, कोई फन नहीं, कुछ नहीं है ना, कोई इतना पर्पस नहीं है बड़ा वाला. वेरएज टैगोर जो है वो एक साधक जो स्पिरिचुअल सीकर होता है उसकी तरह ही लाइफ जीते हैं, बट इनकी लाइफ में एक पर्पस है जो वो अचीव कर रहे हैं. सो वो बता रहे कि asceticism is the most ancient path of enlightenment and genuine asceticism is indeed worthy of reverence. Equally worthy is the treading of the more difficult path of remaining in the world while doing one's duties. ये इतना प्यारा आंसर है. Equally worthy is the treading of the more difficult path of remaining in the world while doing one's duties. Tagore believed in living in the world without being of it. ये वही वाली बात होगी कि आप जो है कमल का फूल हो पर आप कीचड़ में नहीं हो, मतलब कीचड़ से बाहर आ चुके हो पर आप रहते उसी एरिया में हो. पर उसके नहीं हो. A line from one of his poems, Liberation by detachment from the world is not mine, is highly expressive of his philosophy. Liberation by detachment from the world is not mine. मतलब दुनिया से दूर रह के डिटैचमेंट की प्रैक्टिस करके लिबरेशन पाना मेरे लिए नहीं है. मैं वर्ल्ड में रह के ही मतलब आई प्रैक्टिस डिटैचमेंट, समथिंग लाइक दैट. द की पॉइंट ऑफ हिज लाइफ वाज नॉट सैक्रिफाइस बट कॉन्क्वेस्ट. मतलब उन्होंने अपने आप को इतना डिसिप्लिन किया था कि द माइंड वाज एबल टू कॉन्कर एनीथिंग एंड एवरीथिंग. Humanity has seen three kinds of great men. First, those who were gifted and great by birth. Second, those who have attained greatness by sincere and selfless efforts. And third, those unfortunate ones on whom greatness is thrust by the press and publicity. So, three kinds of great men. First, जो gifted थे और great by birth थे. सेकंड, जिन्होंने अपनी ग्रेटनेस को जो है सिंसियर सेल्फ एफर्ट से पाया था. तीसरे जो है वो है अनफॉर्चुनेट वंस लिखा हुआ है, जिनमें की ग्रेटनेस जो है वो प्रेस एंड पब्लिसिटी से उनको मिली पर एक्चुअली में उतने ग्रेट थे नहीं वो, या उन पे प्रेस एंड पब्लिसिटी ने थोप दी मतलब ग्रेटनेस. टैगोर वाज इन द फर्स्ट कैटेगरी, मतलब वो गिफ्टेड थे और ग्रेट बाय बर्थ थे. A gifted and a highly talented poet and genius. He lived in practice according to the sayings of the Upanishads. All whatsoever that moves in the universe is indwelt by the Lord. Enjoy thou what hath been allotted by him. Covet not the wealth of anyone. कि भगवान ने जो कुछ दिया है उसको एंजॉय करो, दूसरे की वेल्थ को कवेट मतलब छीनो नहीं. और कि जहां भी गॉड मतलब यूनिवर्स में जो कोई भी है या जो कुछ भी है या जो कुछ भी मूव करता है कि उसमें उसके कण कण में भगवान है बेसिकली. I admire Tagore. He was the most universal, encompassing, and complete human being I have known. He was a living embodiment of the whole of humanity, who knew both man and knower and man the thinker. Thinker, sorry, man the maker. He believed in allowing a person to grow by satisfying both the demand of society and the need for solitude. Sometimes I used to call him the Plato of the East. His views about the East and the West were highly admired by people of both these cultures. Tagore did not want Westerners to become Easterners in their minds and outward behavior. He wanted the West to join hands with the East in the noble contest for the promotion of the highest ideas, which are common to the whole world. According to him, the evolution of man is the evolution of the creative personality. Man alone has the courage of standing against the biological laws. Behind all great nations and noble works done in the world, there have been noble ideas. An idea is that something which is the very basis of creativity. It is true that life is full of misfortunes, but fortunate is he who knows how to utilize the ideas which can make him creative. But fortunate is he who knows how to utilize the ideas which can make him creative. Time is the greatest of all filters, and all ideas are best of all wealth, and ideas are best of all wealth. Fortune is that rare opportunity which helps one to express his ideas and abilities at the proper time. Amazing. Tagore's philosophies surmounted all the obstacles which at first obscure the truth. Obscure मतलब जो कि ट्रुथ को छुपा देती हैं. तो टैगोर की फिलॉसफी जो थी उन्होंने सारे के सारे ऑब्स्टेकल्स को सरमाउंट कर लिया जो कि पहले ट्रुथ को छुपा देती हैं. According to him, death has for ages been a source of fear and misery because people have not pondered over the truth. Oh, who suffer and fear the approach of death, should hear and learn the music of Tagore, which teaches how to lose yourself in the infinite and the eternal. Just tune the chords of your being and make them move in harmony with the music of the cosmos. Every woman and man should strive to secure the light of truth and live simply and wisely for the common good. The rhythm of music supported Tagore's philosophy of life. Music completed his personality, but this is not all. His words and melodies are still going on in the minds of poets and musicians today. This is wow. What a sage person, yeah. Sage person. Mother of God. Wow. Tagore believed that all existences constitute the one organism of the entire cosmos, emitting love as the highest manifestation of its vital energy and having as its soul the center of spiritual galaxy. The world so far talks only about the religion of God, but Tagore always talked about the religion of man. It is a religion of feeling through ecstatic experience, which represents opinion in its most intense and living stage, offering a far better solution to the ills of life than philosophy and metaphysics. The love of God is a sympathetic and synthetic response. See, this love of God is a sympathetic and synthetic response. The finite being is as much a requirement for God as God for the finite being. The soul of the lotus goes on blossoming for ages in which I am bound, as though without escape. There is no end to the opening of its petals, and the honey in it as has such sweetness that thou, like an enchanted being, can never ever desert it. And therefore thou art bound, and I am, and salvation is nowhere. Wow. Heavy duty, yeah, heavy duty. इसको एक बार और पढ़ते हैं. The soul of the lotus goes on blossoming. So उन्होंने इंसान को लोटस से कंपेयर किया है, ideally speaking. The soul of lotus goes on blossoming for ages in which I am bound, as though without escape. There is no end to the opening of its petals. मतलब जो इंसान का जो डेवलपमेंट होता है उसके कोई एंड नहीं होता. देयर इज नो एंड टू द ओपनिंग ऑफ इट्स पेटल्स एंड द हनी इन इट. मतलब डिवाइन एक्सटेसी या जो डिवाइन ब्लिस होती है उनकी, उन वो लोटसेस की या इंसानों की या मतलब सोल की. एंड द हनी इन इट हैज सच स्वीटनेस दैट you, like an enchanted being, can never ever desert it, and therefore you are bound, and I am, and salvation is nowhere. So basically वो बात कर रहे हैं कि सोल के अंदर जो है इतना स्वीट, सच स्वीटनेस इज देयर कि उससे छुटकारा पाके कहीं जाया भी नहीं जा सकता. क्योंकि वो अब ये वही बोल सकता है जिसने कि उसको एक्चुअली में एक्सपीरियंस किया है अपनी लाइफ में. After staying at Shantiniketan, I decided to leave for the Himalayas to assimilate the ideas I had acquired there and then formulate certain guidelines for my future. I remember a few striking lines from Tagore's poems. I read in the problems of life and the world, the twist of tears and joy. I see before myself the busy feet of the wind, suggesting humanity and law. The wind hastens to the shadow whose passion lies. Shall we go abroad and start anew, O wind, to build a better life and song? Setting history straight. When I was about 20 years of age, I traveled to Simla, one of the holiday resorts in Punjab, Himalayas. I met a Swami there whom people called Punjabi Maharaj. He was a very tall, healthy, handsome, and a learned man. I had an umbrella in my hand, and he asked me, "Why do you carry such a burden? Be free." As we are walking together, it started to rain. Since I had an umbrella, I opened it. He said, "What are you doing?" I answered, "I'm protecting us from the rain." He said, "Don't do that. This is a link between heaven and earth. Why should we be deprived of that? Throw away your umbrella and other belongings if you want to walk with me." I protested, "Swamiji, I will get wet." He told me, "If you're afraid of getting your clothes wet, either don't wear clothes and walk freely or get out of the rain." What he said affected me. I left the umbrella right there on the path. Since then, when it rains and I'm outside, I really enjoy it. Wow, it's beautiful, no? In the winter, the Swami would walk about wearing only a thin cotton garb. It was his only possession. He was a man with a very sensitive nature, but he had completely mastered his sensitivity to heat and cold. By the way, आपको पता होना चाहिए कि मास्टरिंग सेंसिटिविटी टू हीट एंड कोल्ड जो होती है वो बॉडी में दो चैनल होती हैं, ईदा की और पिंगला की, जो कि सुषुम्ना मतलब सेंट्रल चैनल के आसपास चलती हैं, लेफ्ट एंड राइट साइड पे चलती हैं। उसमें से एक चैनल जो होती है वो उसको बोलते हैं पिंगला हॉट चैनल, दूसरी वाले को बोलते हैं ईदा कोल्ड चैनल, या सूर्य नाड़ी या चंद्र नाड़ी बोलते हैं, ठीक है। वर्ल्ड में सक्सेस पाने के लिए इन चैनल्स का बैलेंस्ड होना बहुत जरूरी होता है। और एक इम्पॉर्टेंट फैक्टर ये है कि अ, इन पे अगर कुछ प्रैक्टिसेस के द्वारा अगर आपकी, मुझे नहीं पता कि क्या प्रैक्टिस होती है, मुझे सच सच में आइडिया नहीं है। अगर आपकी एनर्जी आप इसमें घटा बढ़ा सकते हो अगर, तो आप अपनी बॉडी का टेम्परेचर ऐसे चेंज कर लोगे विदाउट एनी प्रॉब्लम। अगर आपके पास पॉसिबिलिटी है वो वाली, तो इसे कैसे किया जाता है मुझे आइडिया नहीं है। बट एक बुक थी जिसका नाम था इनिशिएशन टू हर्मेटिक्स बाय फ्रांस बार्डोन। फ्रांस बार्डोन ने बताया था कि दिस इज अचीवेबल अगर आप विजुअलाइज करो, फॉर एग्जांपल अपने कमरे को, एंड यू फिल इट विद फायर एलिमेंट, फॉर एग्जांपल इमेजिन फायर एलिमेंट इनसाइड योर होल रूम, एंड बाय योर ब्रीदिंग यू क्रिएट फायर एलिमेंट। उन्होंने कहा था कि ये करने में आपको मतलब कई महीने लग जाएंगे इसको प्रॉपरली करने में, ऑब्वियसली। इसलिए अगर आप कर सकोगे तो यू कैन कंट्रोल द टेम्परेचर ऑफ योर होल रूम एंड द होल बॉडी, एंड देन इनसाइड एंड आउटसाइड विल बी एग्जैक्टली द सेम थिंग। तो आपको एसी की जरूरत नहीं पड़ेगी, एज सच यू कैन कंट्रोल वट एवर यू वांट टू कंट्रोल इन टर्म्स ऑफ टेम्परेचर। तो मेरा ख्याल ये है कि वो विजुअलाइजेशन करके आप अपनी जो इधर पिंगला है, आप उसका उसका जो रेट है ऑफ एक्टिवेशन आप वो वेरी कर सकते हो। मुझे याद है एक बार हम लोगों ने किसी को स्कैन किया था, एक काफी पहले की बात है, कि जिस आदमी को बहुत जल्दी गुस्सा आता है उसकी पिंगल आमतौर पर ज्यादा एक्टिवेटेड होती है कंपेयर टू जिसको गुस्सा नहीं आता है, फॉर एग्जाम्पल, राइट। जिसको जो आमतौर पर ठंडा रहता है, अ, अगर आपको स्कैनिंग आती है आप लोगों को, तो आप किसी ऐसे आदमी को स्कैन कीजिए जिसे गुस्सा आता हो, फॉर एग्जाम्पल बहुत ज्यादा आता हो, या मतलब इमोशनल टाइप का आदमी हो, और बोलिए कि एक्टिवेशन ऑफ पिंगला नाड़ी, फिर बोलिए एक्टिवेशन ऑफ ईथर नाड़ी, स्कैन कीजिए। और फिर किसी ऐसे आदमी को स्कैन कीजिएगा जिसको गुस्सा नहीं आता, या ठंडा आदमी है। फिर किसी ऐसे आदमी को स्कैन कीजिएगा जो कि मॉडरेटेड है। जिसको गुस्सा आता है ना, उसकी पिंगला बहुत ज्यादा एक्टिवेटेड होगी, जो कि ज्यादा इमोशनल है, इधर से ज्यादा। पिंगला ये सूर्य नाड़ी होती है। या मेक सेंस या एवरीवन? ठीक है, आगे चले। बाय द वे, इनका नॉर्मलाइजेशन आराम से हो सकता है कंपेयर टू, अगर आप अगर ये लोग अपनी हीलिंग करें या करवाएं, तो ओवर अ पीरियड ऑफ टाइम दिस कैन completely normalize एक्चुअली। आगे चलते हैं। When the mind contacts the objects of the world through the senses, it experiences sensations of pain and pleasure. If you learn, if you learn not to contact the objects of the world, you will be free from external influences and find greater pleasures within. This Swami was very learned and spoke only English. For hours, he would talk about English literature, and we would discuss Swami Rama Tirtha's life and works. He received his Master's of Science degree from the Oxford University and his Doctorate of Science from Lahore University. Ah, he was a doctorate in science, huh? God knows what science, but some doctorate of science. Though he lectured on the University of Vedanta philosophy, he detested the alien rule in India. During this time, before India's independence, there was a small sect of modern Swamis who did not practice meditation. They were young and learned, and understanding the condition of the country, they participated in the freedom movement. I call them politician Swamis. They would say external freedom first, internal freedom later on. This Swami was a politician Swami. Actually, he had become a Swami out of frustration after seeing the condition of the country. He was a kind and gentle, but he could be very rebellious. He did not follow the normal disciplines of a renunciate, but rather spent his whole time totally preoccupied with the thought of overthrowing British rule in India. This was his worship and aim of life. Sometimes he was arrested twice a day for insulting Britishers. He would annoy British officers by abruptly telling them to leave the country. He would call them names and say, "You are speaking English and you don't know your grammar. You don't know your own language." What a tragedy that the imperial government sends such uneducated people who do not come from good families to India. Once, when we were walking in the hills outside Simla, a British officer came galloping on his horse from opposite direction. He stopped his horse suddenly. He saw us and yelled, "You monkeys, get out of the way." He jerked the reins and fell off the horse onto the road. The Swami told him, "We have every right to walk on this road. This is my country. Mind your own business. Get up and get on your horse and go away. I'm not your slave." The next day, the Swami was arrested, but within 2 hours, he was released. The governor of that state knew him from London and also knew that the Swami would create more problems if he were in jail. During this time, I had some prejudice against the British rulers of India and thought of helping the freedom movement. The Swami said, "Come on, let's use guns and one by one destroy these British administrators." He sincerely wanted me to join him and fight the British. He said that it was not a sin. If someone comes to your house and tries to destroy your culture, why can't you defend yourself? He was the most bitter Swami I had ever met. I believed in Mahatma Gandhi's philosophy, psychology, and movement, but I never took an active part in politics. I wanted to influence this Swami to leave politics, and he wanted to influence me to enter politics. This went on for 4 months. He tried to persuade me, but my master said I should not join any political party. My master said, "You are from the cosmos and a citizen of the world. Why identify with the people of India only? Your concern should be for the whole of community, or whole of humanity. First, have inner strength, sharpen your intellect, Learn to control your emotions and then take action. Fanatic devotion to a country, even one as spiritually great as India, does not befit a man of God. My master told me not to become involved in violence and even predicted the date of independence for India. That's amazing, man. That's so cool. मतलब एनलाइटन लोग जो होते होंगे ना उनको तो पता है कि हाँ ये होगा उनको तो फिक्र ही नहीं कोई एक्चुअली तो अच्छा है आई थिंक इट्स अ गुड थिंग टू मेडिटेट प्रॉपरली एंड यू नो नो थिंग्स interesting actually. Later this Simla Swami and I separated. We decided to tread our own paths. The same year he was shot by the British police in Kullu valleys of the Himalayas. During my stay in Simla, I met a British missionary who was writing a book on Indian culture and philosophy. He allowed me to read the manuscript. I was shocked to read the numerous lies he had written about India, her culture, civilization, and philosophy. He even tried to convert me and tempt me to marry a rich British girl. Conversion to what? Lifestyle and cultural habits? I loved Christianity because of my love for Christ and the Bible. But this man created a repulsion in my mind. After that, I avoided the Christian missionaries who roamed around the cities, villages, and mountains. These people were financed and supported by the British government and were politicians in the garb of missionaries. By writing such books, they knowingly tried to damage the ancient Vedic civilization. They distorted the Vedic culture and philosophy, which is the mother of several religions, including Hinduism, Jainism, Buddhism, and Sikhism. The Swami in Shimla used to oppose such missionaries and say, "You missionaries are not true followers of Christ and have no knowledge of the Bible." For 200 to 300 years, these British missionaries tried to destroy the civilization of India, but they could not accomplish this for two main reasons. First, the architects and custodians of India or Indian culture and civilization are the women. And second, 75% of the people of India live in the villages and remain untouched by the influence of the British rulers and missionaries. That's amazing. In spite of several hundred years of ancient of alien rule in India, they could not change Indian civilization. They were successful, though, in changing the language and dress and in introducing some British customs. The British government launched an extensive campaign by publishing such literature as the book written by missionary. Indian writers and scholars were suppressed and even arrested and jailed if they refuted these books or wrote against the campaign. Such literature published by the Britishers created confusion and misguided Western scholars and travelers, thereby depriving them of studying the vast wealth of Indian literature, philosophy, and science. By the way, यही आजकल इंडिया में भी हो रहा है पता है? I've heard, I don't know because मैंने खुद बुक्स नहीं पढ़ के देखी हैं, but I've heard कि जो कुछ पॉलिटिकल पार्टीज हैं वो एजुकेशन को डायरेक्टली कंट्रोल कर रहे हैं कि क्या सिखाया जाए क्या ना सिखाया जाए और कैसे सिखाया जाए एक्चुअली फॉर एग्जांपल वो ये बताते हैं कि इब्राहिम लोदी महमूद गजनी वो आके इतनी इतनी बार इंडिया आए लूट लूट के ले गए तो इससे ना ये इंप्रेशन पड़ता है कि वो आते हैं लूटते ले आते हैं और हम लुटते रहते हैं एक्चुअली हम लूटने के लिए बैठे हैं वो आके लूट लूट के लेके जा रहे हैं और वो उनको ग्लोरीफाई करते हैं दे आर प्रैक्टिकली मर्डरर्स रेपिस्ट एंड थीव्स एंड रॉबर्स ग्लोरीफाई करना बहुत ही गलत बात है इन चीज़ों को इनफैक्ट उनको उसी लाइट में दिखाया जाना चाहिए कि जिस लाइट में वो एक्चुअली में है नॉट टू बी ग्लोरीफाइड एवर एवर 17 बार जिसने इंडिया पे रेड की औरतों बच्चों को उठा के लेके उसको ग्लोरीफाई करोगे ये आइडली स्पीकिंग दिस इज नॉट what a history textbook should teach, at least not in the way that they are taught actually, right? एंड दिस इज सो मैं आपको एक एग्जाम्पल बस ये दे रहा हूँ बाकी तो और भी बहुत सारे एग्जाम्पल्स होंगे बट इनका ग्लोरिफिकेशन गलत चीज है, वो कल्चर नहीं सपोर्ट करता, आइडियली स्पीकिंग। तो इट्स वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट टू कीप थिंग्स कंप्लीटली इन पर्सपेक्टिव। उसको वैसे ही बताया जाना चाहिए, उसकी कड़ी निंदा की जानी चाहिए कि ये सही चीज नहीं, ताकि लोग सही चीज सीखें। मैं अपने एक्सपीरियंस से बता रहा हूँ कि जब मैंने मतलब पढ़ाई की थी, तो मुझे ये याद है कि इस तरह से चीजें थी, और बहुत बाद में समझ में आया कि ये तो बहुत गलत चीज थी एक्चुअली। मतलब हम लोग बचपन से पढ़ते आ रहे हैं, अपने सॉरी बचपन से बोलते आ रहे हैं अपनी क्या नाम है, क्या है वो, जनगण मन अधिनायक जय हे, भारत भाग्य विधाता। अब उसमें कितना बढ़िया एक्चुअली, पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा मतलब आपकी लेफ्ट साइड, द्राविड़ उत्कल बंगा ये नीचे, और आपकी राइट साइड होगी, ठीक है। विंध्य हिमाचल ऊपर वाला, यमुना और गंगा, उत्कल जलधि तरंगा ये नीचे वाला साइड, ठीक है। तो ये पूरा का पूरा बेसिकली इंडिया को मैप शो किया हुआ है इसमें, पूरा का पूरा कवर किया हुआ है। उसको कोई पढ़ाता ही नहीं है एक्चुअली, डेप्थ में जहां जाना चाहिए वहां जाते ही नहीं है स्कूल्स। एक टू सर्टन डिग्री में, सब कुछ नहीं बोल रहा हूँ, मतलब कहीं कहीं पे इस तरीके से डिस्टॉर्शन है कि वो एक पर्पस सर्व कर रहे हैं, वो एक्चुअली पढ़ा नहीं रहे हैं, वो आपको एनलाइटन या जागरूक नहीं कर रहे हैं, वो आपको बस इंडस्ट्री में जॉब के लिए प्रिपेयर कर रहे हैं। उसमें भी कुछ गलत नहीं है, मैं ऐसे नहीं बोल रहा हूँ, मैं बस ये बता रहा हूँ कि वो स्कूल्स का पर्पस ये हो गया है कि आपको एक अच्छा पैकेज मिले, आपको सिर्फ उसके लिए प्रिपेयर किया जा रहा है बस। आप डेवलप हो, आपकी थिंकिंग जो है वो डेवलप हो, आप सोसाइटी में एक अलग अलग अच्छे लेवल पे कंट्रीब्यूट करो, उसके लिए आपको प्रिपेयर नहीं किया जा रहा है। आपकी अपने डीप सोचने के तरीके को, आजकल के स्कूल्स का मुझे आइडिया नहीं है वैसे, आई बी अपफ्रंट, मुझे अपने टाइम के स्कूल्स का पता है, बट या मतलब इट शुडंट बी लाइक कि स्कूल्स जो है वो कॉर्पोरेशंस की तरह काम कर रहे हैं, वो सही नहीं हो, वो सही नहीं है। अगर ऐसा हुआ तो इसका मतलब ये होता है कि कैपिटलिस्ट जो है वो पूरी की पूरी सोसाइटी सिर्फ वही चला रहे हैं। स्कूल से जो बच्चे निकलेंगे वो इनके फैक्ट्री में काम करेंगे, या और ये लोग जो है मतलब इनके हर टाइप के एरिया को गवर्न करेंगे। तो बेसिकली एक सिस्टम बन चुका है जिसमें कि, एनीवेज आगे चलते हैं। आई होप थिंग्स विल गेट मच मच बेटर बाय द वे। जैसे कि आजकल ना कोई ऐसा एक्चुअली में ऐसा कोई प्रॉपर पोएट नहीं बनना चाहता, बिकॉज वहां लोग पैसा नहीं देते हैं। और चलो पैसे की बात भी छोड़ दो, बट ऐसा कोई डीप फिलोसॉफिकल रिलीजन, जब आप किसी बच्चे से बात करते हो, कोई ये नहीं बोलता कि आई वांट टू बिकम अ पोएट, आई वांट टू बिकम दिस, आई वांट टू बिकम दैट। कोई ऐसे क्रिएटिव फील्ड के नाम नहीं लेते हैं, आसपास देखने के लिए नहीं मिलता है। एंड दैट इज इवन सैड एक्चुअली, लुकिंग एट द फैक्ट कि हम वी आर ए कल्चर ऑफ एक्सट्रीम वेराइटी। आगे चलते हैं। Although Paul Deussen, Max Muller, Goethe, and other writers wrote books on yoga and the system of Indian philosophy in the Upanishads, confusion and misunderstanding still remains among the general Western public. Not a single book on yoga was written with honesty and sincerity by Western writers before Annie Besant, the famous theosophist. Ye enters Annie Besant. She was, by the way, president of Theosophical Society in India, who became the president of Congress Party of India also. Wow, that's amazing. And Sir John Woodruff, ये भी theosophist थे. Yeah, he was the foremost of the Western writers on Indian philosophy. So he could not write on as many scriptures as he desired. He introduced the philosophy of Tantra to the Western world. I pity travelers and so-called writers who still persist in writing books on yoga, philosophy, and tantra and various spiritual subjects without studying, knowing, or practicing them. A distorted history of India was intentionally introduced in the schools. Because of this, oh, देखो अभी schools में भी आ गया exactly. अभी हम यही वाली बात कर रहे थे. A distorted history of India was intentionally introduced in the schools. Because of this, Indian students forgot their culture and history. To lose touch with one's tradition is to lose touch with one's self. Education in India was completely changed by the British. All the subjects were taught in the English medium, and every student was forced to pray according to the way of the British missionaries, like Lord Jesus की prayer, yeah, कोई और prayer maybe. I don't think it's a good or a bad thing. I just think that uh, what the what Swami Rama is trying to say is कि British अलग-अलग changes लेके आए उसमें. There was no freedom of thought, so there could be no freedom of speech and action. If someone did not have an education of the kind imparted by the British, he would never get. देखो यही बात मैं अब बता रहा था आपको. नौकरी नहीं मिलेगी. जहाँ नौकरी नहीं, वहाँ कोई लाइफ का पर्पस भी समझ में नहीं आता आजकल. Through this, I learned how power corrupts a nation and destroys its culture and civilization. The surest way to destroy a country and its culture is by first changing its language. The British were successful because they did this. Even after 30 years of independence, English is still India's official language. Since India did not have one native language, there was and still is a lack of communication among the various states of India. Indian Rajas had fought among themselves and could not make a united front. Thus, India suffered for several hundred years. Unifying the language of India is one of the greatest tasks that people and the government have yet to complete. A good, sound language produces good literature, which enriches the culture, education, and civilization. In India, this is still lacking, and this is why countrymen from various parts of the land cannot communicate even today. The present system of education and upbringing in India should be carefully adapted to the varied requirements of Indian civilization. The construction of new type of schools, national literature, and art should be encouraged everywhere. See, national literature and art should be encouraged everywhere. We have still to think about the fundamental reconstruction of the whole order of Indian society through literature, science, art, and education. The passive method of thinking and living needs to be changed to positive and active dynamism. The most characteristic trait of education should be inseparable, connecting to the various cultures and their collective civilization. Remember the words of the sages who advise you to acquire and to utilize all that which was valuable in the development of human thought and culture in thy action, in thy ancient history. मतलब वो ये बता रहे हैं कि उन सेजेस की बात को याद रखो जिन्होंने आपको ये एडवाइस किया था कि हमारे कल्चर में जितना कुछ भी वैल्यूएबल है और वैल्यूएबल इन द डेवलपमेंट ऑफ ह्यूमन थॉट एंड कल्चर है उसको एक्वायर करो और यूटिलाइज करो उस चीज़ को. जैसे कि सुपर ब्रेन योगा है फॉर एग्जांपल, उसको साउथ में बोलते हैं थोपू कमम और समथिंग. किसी को याद है एग्जैक्टली क्या बोलते हैं उसको, वो जो गणेश जी के सामने ऐसे ऐसे करके करते हैं. तो वो बहुत पावरफुल प्रैक्टिस एक्चुअली, पर उसका साइंस गुम गया बीच में और इसको एज अ पनिशमेंट डिक्लेयर डिक्लेयर कर दिया गया. सो इट इज डिस्टॉर्शन. हाँ, थोपू कर्णम, थोपू कर्णम एग्जैक्टली. सो अनलेस मास्टर चौहान ने साफ साफ ये बहुत क्लियरली बताया था कि अगर हिंदुइज्म की टीचिंग्स को रिवाइव नहीं किया गया तो हिंदुइज्म विल डाई इन अनदर 150 years. That is a serious thing coming out of a great master. उनको पता है कि एग्जैक्टली क्या लाइफ में मतलब चल रहा है, इसलिए उन्होंने बुक लिखी थी हिंदुइज्म रिवील्ड, ताकि ही कैन टॉक अबाउट हिंदुइज्म के बारे में कि एक्चुअल मीनिंग क्या है, एक्चुअल सिग्निफिकेंस क्या है, ताकि आप उन चीज़ों को देख के समझना शुरू करो एंड न कि खाली ब्लाइंडली बस फॉलो करो. यू नो, वेरी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट टू नो. So he says कि acquire and utilize all that which was valuable in the development of human thought and culture. Learn how quickly to realize the necessity of giving truly international education to the rising generation of India. The Swami from Shimla made me aware that before British rule, India was very rich, not only in culture, civilization, and spirituality, but also in jewels and gold. Many mysteries were created by invaders like Mughals after they crossed the river Sindhu from the west of India, and later by French, the Portuguese, and finally the British. They destroyed the financial, economic, cultural, and historical India, which was once called the Golden Bird, Sone ki Chidiya, right? India's precious jewels, gold, and other riches were looted by these invaders and taken to their own countries. Once people had abundance, and there was much less disparity between the rich and the poor. Then the caste system in India was structured according to the distribution of labor, but it was completely changed by the Britishers who created hatred with their policy of divide and rule. Why? So, when I tell this, I have no hatred. It is the naked truth. Hmm, interesting. Many travelers, even today, do not know the true Indian history. They repeat the same question again and again. If India is spiritual, why is there so much poverty? अच्छा बाय द वे मैं आपको ना एक बात क्लियर करना चाहता हूँ ये दिया था आई थिंक इफ आई एम नॉट रॉन्ग बुक थी अवतार नाम की आई थिंक एनी बेसेंट की थी उसमें दिया था ये वाला और ये बताया गया था अवतार वाली बुक में कि इंडिया की जो वॉल्स थी वो हजारों साल तक इतनी स्ट्रांग थी कि कभी कोई आ नहीं पाया था इसी एक कंट्री में ऑलमोस्ट सारे के सारे स्पिरिचुअल टीचर्स ऑलमोस्ट सारे के सारे ग्रेट सेजेस लर्नेड मैन ने बर्थ लिया है तो इंडिया का जो घड़ा है वो भर चुका है एक्चुअली बहुत ज्यादा भर गया एक्चुअली अभी तो अब समय आ गया था कि घड़े को ओवरफ्लो होने दिया जाए इसीलिए जो है बाहर से जो इन्वेडर्स थे मुगल हो गए ये वो राइट उनको आने दिया गया इंडिया को थोड़ा थोड़ा तोड़ा गया ताकि ये जो स्पिरिचुअल वेल्थ है वो बाहर जाए इसीलिए ये अलाउ हुआ इसीलिए परमिट हो पाया एक्चुअली वरना इंडिया की बहुत इतनी स्ट्रांग रही है इंडियन सब कॉन्टिनेंट की कि उन्हें कभी तोड़ा नहीं गया सालों सालों से मतलब हजारों साल तक एक्चुअली पहली बार ऐसा हुआ था कि ये अलाउ किया गया था बिकॉज इंडिया की स्पिरिचुअल वेल्थ जो है वो बाहर जानी चाहिए अब एक्चुअली इसीलिए आपने देखा होगा कि 1800s में 1900s में ये एफर्ट डाले गए थे कि जो है जो टीचिंग्स जो हैं वेदांता की उपनिषद की मेडिटेशन की वो वेस्ट तक जाएं यूरोप में भी जाएं अलग अलग जगहों पे जाएं एक्चुअली ये एफर्ट्स स्टार्ट किए गए थे यहाँ से हम बाद में पढ़ेंगे या फिर इसको पढ़ लेते हैं खत्म होने वाला है मेनी ट्रैवलर्स इवन टुडे डू नॉट नो ट्रू इंडियन हिस्ट्री दे रिपीट द सेम क्वेश्चन अगेन एंड अगेन इफ इंडिया इज स्पिरिचुअल व्हाई इज देयर सो मच पॉवर्टी आई एम नॉट अ पॉलिटिशियन but many people ask me why India is so poor. So I say that spirituality and economy could not comprise in any of the histories of the world. They are two entirely different things. Religion and politics always remained separate in India, and spiritual people never became involved in politics. These two diverse forces in India could not unite. Therefore, power decreased. The poverty in India is not because of spirituality, but because of not practicing spirituality. See, not practicing spirituality, not knowing the technique of integrating spirituality with external life. Those leading the country should now become aware of this fact. India suffers because the leaders and people of the country today still do not have a unified vision for uplifting the country as a whole. They do not have an answer to the population problem, nor does there seem to be any immediate solution. I think India is surviving only because of a rich spiritual and cultural heritage. Culture and civilization are two inseparable aspects of the lifestyle of a community, country, or nation. A man may be considered cultured if he dresses nicely, and then presents himself before others. But this does not necessarily make him a civilized person. Civilization refers to the way a nation thinks and feels, to its development of ideas such as non-killing, compassion, sincerity, and faithfulness. Culture is an external way of life. Culture is a flower, while civilization is like fragrance of the flower. A man may be poor and yet be a civilized person. A cultured man without civilization, who may be successful in external world, is not helpful for society because he lacks the inner qualities and virtues which enrich the growth of the individual and the nation. Culture is external, civilization is internal. In the modern world, the integration of these two is necessary. Indian civilization is very rich, but its culture has become pseudo-English culture, which still creates problems in India today. So हम बोलते हैं कि वेस्टर्न कल्चर आ गया इंडिया में जो भी है अच्छा ही मतलब आई थिंक सम लेवल ऑफ फ्यूजन इज ऑलवेज गुड वन शुड नॉट कंसिडर देम एज रोल मॉडल्स दैट्स ऑल जो अच्छा है कुछ वो ले लो उतना बहुत है ठीक है दैट्स योर क्लोजिंग प्रेयर To the Supreme God, to the great Divine Father and the great Divine Mother, thank you for your great blessings. Thank you to our great spiritual teacher, to all the great spiritual teachers, to all the great gods and goddesses, to all the great, great ones. We very, very humbly thank you for your great blessings. Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. See you. अच्छा, next Saturday study नहीं होगा because I'll not be in India. उसके अगले Saturday को study होगा. ठीक है? Bye bye. See you.